She walked out with diamonds, I walked in on lies. Have you ever walked into a room and realized your whole life was being rewritten behind your back? That was the day everything started to unravel. I'm Michelle, 34 years old, and I live just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I never thought my own sister, my only sibling, would become the reason I stopped believing in family. My dad passed suddenly from a stroke. It was a shock to all of us. One minute we were planning his birthday dinner, and the next I was sitting in the hospital holding his cold hand, still wearing the watch I gave him last Christmas. Losing him was like losing the last piece of childhood I had left. Our mom died when we were teenagers, and after that, it was just the three of us. Me, my dad, and my older sister, Vanessa. Vanessa has always had a complicated relationship with money. Where I was more practical, she was impulsive. She married a real estate agent who always overpromised and underdelivered, and she was constantly in and out of financial trouble. But Dad always bailed her out. I didn't mind, until I realized the cost. The day after the funeral, while I was still sorting out the paperwork with the attorney, Vanessa showed up at Dad's house in all black, but not to mourn. She brought a duffel bag. She walked into his room like she owned it, and when I asked what she was doing, she said, just getting what he would have wanted me to have. I followed her upstairs and watched her unzip that bag and start loading it with Mom's jewelry. Our mother's wedding ring, a sapphire pendant from her honeymoon in Italy, the bracelet Dad gave her on their last anniversary before she died. She didn't even hesitate. "You can't just take those," I said, my voice shaking. "We haven't even seen the will." She looked at me, stone cold, and said, "There is no will." I couldn't breathe. I knew he had a will. We'd talked about it over coffee just a few months earlier. He said everything would be split fairly. And then, the second punch to the gut. Vanessa pulled out a manila envelope and tossed it on the bed. Actually, this is the only version that matters now. She had a new will. One I'd never seen. One that somehow left everything to her. I stood there, paralyzed. Everything in my gut told me this was wrong. My father wouldn't do that. Not to me. But I didn't cry, not yet. I just watched her zip up that bag, slide the gold bangles onto her wrist, and strut down the stairs like she'd won. Only she hadn't. Not yet. Because I had a memory, a conversation, and a quiet suspicion that something didn't add up. And I was right. They said there was no other will, but I remembered the fireproof box. What would you do if someone swore something never existed, but you remembered exactly where it was hidden? After Vanessa stormed out of Dad's house with half our mother's jewelry, I sat in his bedroom, still and furious. The will she had? It didn't feel right. My dad was always fair, always transparent. The idea of him leaving me nothing, not even a sentence, wasn't just painful. It felt impossible. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept playing our last conversations over in my mind. 3 months before he died, we had lunch near his place. I remember he said, "Michelle, when the time comes, you and your sister won't have to fight. It's all written out. Simple and clear." Then he laughed and added, "I even bought one of those fireproof lockboxes. It's under the guest room bed, just in case." I jolted upright in bed. The guest room? I hadn't even looked there yet. By sunrise, I was at his house, alone. The front door key still worked, even if I knew that wouldn't last long. The guest room was just how he left it. Tidy, quiet, untouched. I dropped to my knees and lifted the comforter. There it was. A gray fireproof lockbox, dusty, but locked tight. My heart pounded. I rummaged through his nightstand, then his desk drawer, and there, tucked inside an old Red Sox cap, was a tiny silver key. It clicked open on the first try. Inside was a folder. Inside that folder, the original will, signed, notarized, dated last year. I froze. It was clear. Everything was to be split 50/50 between me and Vanessa. The house, the savings, the small family business Dad ran part-time. And at the bottom, in Dad's messy handwriting, was a note. No matter what happens, make sure this is the one that counts. I sat there for 10 minutes just staring at it. I wasn't crazy. He had planned for both of us. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite that just because she got there first. The next day, I took the original will to a probate attorney. He scanned it, frowning slightly. "Do you know who drafted this newer one your sister brought in?" "No idea," I said. "Well," he replied, "this one you brought. It's notarized and witnessed by a licensed attorney. If the other one isn't and the signatures don't check out, we've got a solid case." I left the office clutching a copy of the real will and feeling the first sense of power I'd had in weeks. Vanessa thought the jewelry was the prize, but the truth? The house was worth 10 times more. And I wasn't walking away. You're listening to a story on the Family Revenge Stories channel. If this story resonates with you or reminds you of something you've been through, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss our daily stories. She swore it was legal, but her signature gave her away. What if the signature meant to cut you out turned out to be your biggest weapon? After I handed the original will to the probate attorney, I was riding high on adrenaline. It felt like justice was within reach. But if I've learned anything through this, family betrayal never stops at just one lie. Vanessa didn't know I had the real will yet, and part of me wanted to keep it that way until I had everything in place. But life doesn't always wait for strategy. 2 days later, I got a call from Dad's bank. They said Vanessa had come in, trying to access his accounts using power of attorney documents. Except my dad was dead. Power of attorney dies with the person. When the bank flagged it and refused the transaction, she flipped. Apparently, she started yelling about how Michelle had no business interfering and that she had full rights to everything now. That was my cue. I drove straight to her house. Not to fight, but to ask one question. "Where did you get that will?" She didn't even blink, just crossed her arms and said, "Dad gave it to me. Said he didn't trust you to handle the estate." I just stared at her. "So you're saying he completely changed his mind, didn't tell me, and conveniently left you everything?" She smirked. "Some people get trusted, some people don't." I wanted to scream, but I kept calm and pulled a copy of the original will from my folder. "I found the one in the fireproof box," I said. "You know, the one he told me about before he died. The one signed and witnessed properly." She paled for half a second. Just long enough. And then the panic turned into arrogance. "Well, this one's more recent, so it overrides whatever you found." That's when I played my card. "Who witnessed this one?" I asked. "Because Dad's signature here looks shaky. And the notary stamp? It's not in any official state record." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I continued. "We're having a forensic expert compare signatures. And your little shortcut through probate court. Yeah, I stopped that. The judge has the real will now." She lost it. "You think you're smarter than me?" "No," I said, walking away. "But I think Dad knew I'd need protection, and now I have it." Back in my car, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time since Dad passed, I felt him beside me. Like he knew this would happen. Like he left me that clue, on purpose. But the fight wasn't over yet. Vanessa lawyered up fast, and the court battle was about to begin. And trust me, she had one more trick up her sleeve. She brought a lawyer, I brought the truth. What do you do when your own sister hires a lawyer to prove you don't belong in your own father's will? I'll never forget the feeling walking into probate court for the first time. I wasn't just nervous. I was nauseous. My hands were shaking as I clutched the folder holding the real will. The one Dad had signed. The one Vanessa was desperately trying to erase. She showed up in designer heels and a smug smile, flanked by a high-powered attorney from some downtown Boston firm. I walked in with my local probate lawyer, quiet, sharp, and exactly the kind of person who didn't waste time on drama. We didn't need theatrics. We had the truth. But the moment the judge entered and things got underway, I realized Vanessa wasn't just here to contest the will, she was here to attack my character. Her lawyer claimed I was estranged from my father, that I rarely visited, that I was emotionally unstable, and had even pressured Dad to favor me over Vanessa. Every word felt like a slap. I wanted to shout the truth. I was the one who stayed close. I was the one who showed up when he was sick. I was the one who helped manage his medications and check on the house while Vanessa was off in New York racking up debt. But my lawyer just leaned toward me and whispered, "Let them talk, they're digging their own hole." Then Vanessa made a mistake. She submitted her version of the will into evidence and the judge immediately flagged inconsistencies. The signature looked different from my father's usual handwriting. The notary's name couldn't be verified. And worse, the date on the new will was just 6 days before Dad's stroke, when he was already starting to slur his speech and couldn't even write a check clearly. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Michelle, do you have the earlier version of the will you referenced in your affidavit?" I stood up, knees weak, and handed it to the clerk. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady when I said, "Yes, Your Honor, this is the original, stored in a fireproof box under the guest bed, dated last year, notarized, witnessed, and consistent with everything my father told me in person." My lawyer added, "We've already submitted it for handwriting verification. The signature matches every financial document Mr. Peterson signed over the last 5 years." That's when I saw it. Vanessa's face cracked. The smugness slipped. She looked at her lawyer, then at me, and I could see it in her eyes. She knew she was losing. You're listening to a story on the Family Revenge Stories channel. If this story resonates with you or reminds you of something you've been through, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss our daily stories. She had help forging the will. I found the accomplice. What if the person helping to betray you was someone you trusted too? After the court hearing, I thought things would slow down. I thought the hardest part, showing up, presenting the real will, was over. But I underestimated Vanessa, because just a few days later, my attorney got a packet from her legal team, an emergency motion to delay proceedings. Buried in the paperwork? A sworn statement from someone claiming they witnessed my dad signing her version of the will. It didn't make sense. That signature was nothing like his. The timing didn't add up. But now she had a witness. And when I saw the name on the affidavit, my heart sank. It was Patrick. Patrick had been Dad's handyman for years. He mowed the lawn, fixed the furnace when it broke down last winter, even helped paint the porch the summer before Dad passed. He was quiet, reliable, kind. We brought him a Christmas pie every year. And now he was claiming he watched my father sign a fake will. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore it either. I went straight to his house that evening. He lived just a few streets over from Dad's place, in a small, faded yellow house with cracked steps and a sagging porch swing. I knocked. When he opened the door and saw me, he didn't say anything, just looked guilty. "Can we talk?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded slowly and stepped aside. Inside, everything was just how I remembered, simple, a little cluttered, but warm. He didn't offer me a seat, just leaned against the wall, arms crossed, like a man holding back a secret. I pulled the affidavit out of my bag and held it up. "You really signed this?" He looked away. "Patrick," I said quietly, "you knew my dad. You liked my dad. Why would you lie about something like this?" He didn't answer, but I saw the guilt all over him. So I leaned in. "Did she pay you?" His jaw tightened. That's when I knew. "Vanessa offered to take care of me," he muttered. Said she'd pay off my credit cards, said it wasn't really lying, just confirming what Dad would have wanted anyway. She made it sound easy. She bribed you, I whispered. He looked at the floor. I didn't think you'd fight. I didn't think it would matter. I stared at him, heart racing. It matters to me, and it would have mattered to him. Before I left, I asked one last question. Would you be willing to tell the court what really happened? He didn't answer right away, but just before I walked out, he said, "Come back tomorrow, I'll have something for you." I didn't sleep that night, but the next day, Patrick handed me a written statement. A real one, the truth, signed, dated, and ready for court. And that changed everything. He told the truth, and her lies fell apart. What's more powerful than a forged will? A guilty conscience, and a man finally ready to tell the truth. The day Patrick handed me that signed statement, I felt something shift. I wasn't just defending my place in the family anymore. I was proving that my father's legacy mattered. We filed the statement with the court immediately. Patrick confessed everything, how Vanessa pressured him, what she promised, and how she gave him the fake will already signed. He never saw my dad sign anything. It was enough to raise serious red flags about the entire document's legitimacy. When the court reconvened a week later, I could see Vanessa's confidence cracking. She walked in with a new outfit, a new lawyer, and the same smug attitude. But when Patrick walked into the courtroom and sat down on my side, she froze. I'll never forget her face when the judge asked, "Mr. Larkin, do you stand by your original affidavit?" Patrick cleared his throat. "No, Your Honor, I was misled. I was paid to lie. I never witnessed Mr. Peterson sign anything." The courtroom went silent. Vanessa's lawyer whispered frantically into her ear. She shook her head and stood up. "He's lying," she snapped. "He's only saying that now because Michelle got to him." But it was too late. The damage was done. My lawyer stood up calmly and handed over the forensic handwriting analysis, which confirmed that the signature on the forged will didn't match my dad's known handwriting samples. And with Patrick's confession, the judge had all he needed. He didn't make a final ruling that day, but he issued a motion to invalidate Vanessa's version of the will until the full review was complete. That meant the estate would not be transferred, sold, or accessed by either of us until the matter was resolved. That was a win, a huge one. Vanessa stormed out of the courtroom. I watched her from the hallway window, slamming her car door, pacing with her phone pressed to her ear, unraveling in real time. I should have felt satisfied, but honestly, I felt sad. Not for her, but for everything we lost. We used to play in the backyard together, share bunk beds, sing along to Dad's old CDs on road trips. How did we end up here? I walked out of the courthouse with my lawyer beside me and the house still in legal limbo. But now, I had the truth on my side. The court recognized it. And Vanessa? She was running out of people to lie to. You're listening to a story on the Family Revenge Stories channel. If this story resonates with you or reminds you of something you've been through, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss our daily stories. She took everything sentimental, but I found what really mattered. What hurts more than being cut out of the will? Realizing the person who did it knew exactly what they were taking from you. With Vanessa's version of the will suspended, I thought the storm had passed. I thought we'd made it through the worst of it. But grief is tricky. It sneaks up in the quiet moments, especially when you're sitting alone in your dad's empty house, surrounded by things that used to feel like home. I hadn't set foot in the attic since he passed. It always felt too heavy, too full of memories. But something pulled me up there one afternoon, maybe just a need to be closer to him. I climbed the creaky stairs, opened the dusty door, and stood still. Boxes, so many boxes labeled in his handwriting. One said old bills, another said Michelle's school stuff. I smiled, but then I saw it. Tucked in the back corner, A shoebox labeled, "For Michelle." I couldn't breathe. Hands shaking, I opened the lid. Inside were photos, cards, letters, my old ballet shoes from middle school, a lock of hair from my first haircut, drawings I made as a kid that he'd apparently kept all these years. And a note, dated 6 months before he died. "Michelle, if you're reading this, then I'm probably gone. I want you to know something. I'm proud of you. I always have been. You showed up when it counted. You didn't ask for much, but you gave a lot. I know your sisters made some choices I don't understand, but don't let that take anything away from what you've built. I made sure things are fair. If something feels off, trust your gut, and fight for what's yours. Love you always." Dad. I sat there on the floor sobbing. Not angry tears, just full ones. Because in that moment, I finally felt seen. Vanessa took the jewelry, she took the watches, the cufflinks, even Mom's wedding ring, but this was mine. Unmistakably, undeniably mine. And it reminded me why I started this whole fight in the first place. Not for money, not even for the house, but for him, for the love he gave me, the trust he left me, the memory of a father who believed in fairness, in honesty, and in me. I took that box home, I kept it on my nightstand through the rest of the court case. And when things finally reached the conclusion, I brought it back to the house. Our house. Because even though the final decision hadn't been announced yet, I already knew. I wasn't leaving. She took the jewelry, I took the house. What's more valuable than gold or diamonds? A home built on truth. And a legacy no one can erase. It took 3 more weeks before the court finalized its ruling. I barely slept the night before. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The will, Patrick's confession, the handwriting analysis, the shoebox in the attic. I kept wondering if somehow, despite everything, Vanessa would still find a way to twist the truth. But she didn't. The judge ruled in my favor. Dad's original will, the one stored in that fireproof box, signed and notarized a year before he passed, was declared valid and legally binding. Vanessa's version? Officially deemed fraudulent and removed from consideration. Patrick's testimony sealed it. And just like that, everything Dad intended fell back into place. The house, his savings, his half of the small business he'd passed on to both of us, everything was split 50/50. But here's the twist. When the court offered the chance to liquidate the estate, sell the house, and divide the cash, I refused. Instead, I offered Vanessa the other assets, the accounts, the business, even some of the jewelry she took, all of it, if she signed over her share of the house. And she did, because she didn't want the house. Not really. She wanted control. And when she couldn't have that, she walked away. That day, I stood on the porch alone with the keys in my hand. The same porch Dad and I painted together. The place he built memories that no amount of betrayal could undo. I didn't feel victorious. I felt peaceful. I moved in 2 weeks later. Slowly. Deliberately. I didn't rush to redecorate. I kept the photo of Dad on the mantel, the creaky stairs, the worn spot on the kitchen floor where he used to stand while brewing his morning coffee. The house wasn't just brick and wood. It was everything I had fought for. Vanessa and I haven't spoken since. Maybe one day we will. Maybe not. But I've learned something through all of this. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect, it's about honor. And when someone tries to rewrite your story, to cut you out and bare your worth, you fight back. Not with hate, with truth, with proof, with strength. And when the dust settles, you don't need revenge. You just need the keys. Because she took the jewelry, but I took the house. And I'm never giving it back. You're listening to a story on the Family Revenge Stories channel. If this story resonates with you or reminds you of something you've been through, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss our daily stories.